We're on Section 2, Problem 17 of the College Board Online Practice Test. The problem reads, in the figure above, a shaded polygon, which has equal sides and equal angles, is partially covered with a sheet of blank paper. If x plus y equals 80, how many sides does the polygon have? Okay, so I've drawn our figure here on the whiteboard, and I first want to call your attention to the question that is being asked in this problem so that we can keep our focus as we solve the problem. The question is, how many sides does the polygon have? So let's write that down just to remember what we're solving for. Okay, so we have number of sides. The other thing I want to go over are the facts presented in the problem. So we have our figure, and the problem tells us that the larger polygon has equal sides and equal angles, and also that x plus y equals 80 degrees. So let's write that down in our notes. Okay, so we have that down. Now let's look at our figure. We have this large polygon, which is partially covered by a sheet of paper, and this is our paper. Okay, and this problem makes you take a little bit of a leap because even though we're trying to solve for the large polygon, which is partially hidden by the paper, you need to notice that the leftover, or the part of the polygon that is visible, is actually a quadrilateral, and I'm going to circle it here. Okay, so first we need to focus on this quadrilateral because the only numbers that we can actually start using are the x and the y measurements. And the x and the y measurements, I don't want you to get confused. Those are not the angles of the polygon. Those are the angles of the figure here that is that is the result of covering a polygon with a sheet of paper. So the actual angles of the polygon are up here. And I just want to remind you that all the angles of the large polygon are equal, which is in our facts here. So let's call the angles of the polygon A. Okay, so if you think about this quadrilateral, we know that it has 4 sides, and we know that the measure of some of the angles are given in our facts. So let's try and solve for the actual angles of the polygon, which is going to help us find the sides of the polygon. So we know that the total degree measure of a quadrilateral is 360 degrees. And let's write that down in our notes. Okay, so we have that all angles of a quadrilateral add up to 360. So let's write the little formula. We know that the angles are A plus A, okay, and that's this angle here and this angle here, because remember they're the same measure, plus x plus y equals 360 degrees. And let me just remind you, so we have x is one angle of the quadrilateral, y is another angle of the quadrilateral, and then A is a fourth angle of the quadrilateral, but we know is a third angle, of the quadrilateral, but we know that it's equal to this other angle here because all the angles of the polygon are equal. So that leaves us with 2A plus 80 equals 360. Okay, and the reason that I put 80 is because we know from our facts that x plus y equals 80, so we can cross out x plus y and make that 80. So then if we solve our formula, we'll get 2a equals 280, and a equals 140. Now, let's remind ourselves that we're solving for the number of sides, okay? So we know the number of angles in the polygon, we don't know the number of sides. But if we try and recall formulas from the formulas that you studied of angles and sides of polygons, we can recall that the total angles of a polygon equals the number of sides minus 2 times 180 degrees. So let's write that down in our notes. Okay, so here we've written that the total angles of the polygon equal the number of sides minus 2 times 180. So we're going to give number of sides a variable. We're going to say that the number of sides is n. So we're going to say n minus 2 in parentheses times 180. So the total angles of the polygon are going to be our angles times our sides, right? Because let's say we have 5 sides and we have obviously 5 angles, and each angle equals 30. To find the total angles, we would say 5 times 30. Okay, well, same thing here. We are going to have our angle measure times our number of sides. And we know that our angle measure is 140. So let's add that. And like I said, the total angles is going to be one angle times the number of angles. And the number of angles is n, which is also the number of sides. Okay, so now we have an equation that we can solve for, and n is going to be number of sides, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So if we solve for n, let's find out what we get. 180n, because we're going to distribute the 180, minus 2 times 180, which is 360, equals 140n. And if we subtract both sides by 140n, we'll get 40n on this side. And then we're going to add 360 to both sides. So equals 360. And if we divide 360 by 40, we'll get 9. So let's write it over here. N equals 9. And just to remind you, n was the variable we used for the number of sides, which is what we're looking for. And so our answer is 9 sides. And that is answer B. Okay, so as you can see, this problem took a really long time to solve. It's toward the end of the section. It's definitely one of the harder problems on this section, or on the entire SAT really, and it has multiple components. So this is a problem that you would leave toward the end, and if you didn't get it right, don't feel too bad, because remember, you don't need to get every single problem right on the SAT to get a good score. This is definitely a challenging problem. So if you do understand it, then congratulations, because it's a tough concept, and hopefully you can use this in case you see a similar problem on the actual exam. But the key is really to think outside the box and realize that we're not just talking about the large polygon. We also have the smaller quadrilateral. And just to keep in mind all of those formulas, because remember, we use a few formulas. We use that quadrilaterals have all angles that add up to 360 degrees, and we also used our formula for total angles of a polygon. And so without memorizing some of these formulas, you probably wouldn't have been able to solve this problem. So it's really important that you add these formulas to your notes in case they come up on the exam and you review them so you can remember them.